Welcome to the Kara's Cure Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sundlin. Most parents, myself included, have those moments where we have reached out or reacted in a way that we just didn't want to. You feel guilty afterwards. Many times it has to do with just how stressed we're feeling. But the good news is we can learn to regulate our nervous system as a parent to create more calm and less conflict with our children. There's a new program by HeartMath that actually helps parents reduce the overwhelm and kind of be the parent they want to be. I'm joined by Dr. Jorina Elbers. She is a pediatric neurologist and also one of the educators at HeartMath, where you learn about this new program that shows us how to heal our nervous system so we can foster more calm at home with our kids. Thank you so much for being with us, Doctor.
Great. It's great to be here. Thank you.
First of all, I think it's fascinating. You're a pediatric neurologist, and yet you are passionate about parents learning this HeartMath. So tell us, what does it have to do with, say, our brains and our nervous system and how we can foster more calm with our kids?
Well, it's something that that I started seeing, really frequently in my pediatric neurology clinic when I was working at Stanford. And so many of my patients were coming in with abdominal pain and chronic headaches, just symptoms that, I knew were related to some ongoing stressors. And the parents were stressed, the kids were stressed. There was a lot going on at home, a lot going on at school. And it really started to dawn on me that there's something going on here, because they would have other things too. They would have anxiety and tics and, digestive problems. So I started to look into what is the impact of stress on the nervous system. And we all understand that stress impacts us psychologically and mentally and emotionally. But the idea that stress would actually physically change things in our nervous system was something that was really intriguing to me. And what I found was decades of research that demonstrate how stress actually physically changes our nervous system. We go into our sympathetic fight or flight system, which makes us, say things we don't mean, makes us be a little bit more emotionally labile. We might yell, we might get aggressive, or we might go into what we call a faint or freeze response or a collapse response, where the nervous system is sort of shutting down, and we, sometimes we just want to crawl under a rock. And it's not just a psychological thing, and that's what was fascinating to me, was that it was actually changing the way my nervous system was functioning, which impacted how I digest my food, how I think, how my cognitive faculties, the part of the brain that's thinking and learning and remembering. And it was no wonder that my patients were having a hard time learning at school. They were having a hard time paying attention, or they might be diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. And, what I realized was it wasn't just a psychological problem. It was actually happening at the level of the brain, the autonomic nervous system, the digestive system, and everything was getting out of whack and out of balance because of the stress they were under.
Yeah, and I sympathize. I mean, our kids are definitely under a lot of stress, and the parents have been under a lot of stress. But the good thing is, you've actually found something that really makes a difference, and it's a HeartMath program. For those who aren't familiar with HeartMath, it's been around for decades. It's well researched. And talk a little bit about this HeartMath program for parents and how it could really help a lot of people create a more calm environment and better connection with their children.
Right. Well, I think we all know that there's a lot of things out there that we are trying to do to help stress levels. And sometimes there are things that we can control on the outside world. Maybe we can change jobs, or maybe we can move our children from a different school. So there are things that we can control, but there are lots of things, lots of stressors that we can't control. And the only thing that we can control, and we can't control our children. I mean, we can try,
Yeah.
but the only thing that we ultimately have control over is ourselves and how we can respond to a situation. And I think we have all had the experience where we've reacted, without thinking or without having the full awareness of the consequence of what we're about to do or what we're about to say. And that's that stress response that's sort of kicking in, and it's giving us that, that initial adrenaline rush, and where we might, actually what happens is our frontal lobe, the part of our brain that's thinking and rational and organized, that actually goes offline. And we say things that we don't mean, or we do things, we're more disinhibited. And our limbic brain, this part of the brain that's organizing our emotions, and receiving threat, right? That is the part of the brain that starts to drive the system. So we call it sort of flipping our lid. Daniel Siegel talks about flipping the lid. This is our cortex. This is the thinking brain. And when we get stressed, we flip our lid, and the limbic brain, this is the brain that's our emotional brain, is underneath. And this starts driving everything. And so we can, that's when things start to go amiss.
Yeah.
And so what we can do actually, and this is the rest of our body, in my little hand diagram here. And this is the part of the body that is controlling our breath, our heart rhythm, and then lower down into our digestive system. And so we can't really think our way out of a reactive mode because we flipped our lid. This part of our brain is not online. And so things like cognitive behavioral therapy are great when we've got our lid on and we can think rationally and we can make decisions. But in the moment when we flipped our lid, that therapy that we've done is not helping us because we're being driven by this limbic brain, this emotional brain. So what we do with HeartMath is we actually work our way up. It's sort of a bottom-up process where we're working with our breath and we're working with our heart rhythm to send messages up to this emotional brain to say, it's okay, all is good, And so when we do what we call heart-focused breathing, so we focus our attention instead of what's happening in the moment, we just take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and we focus our attention in the breath, in the heart area. And we just take a few breaths, a little slower and deeper than usual. And even 3 breaths, 5 breaths. It doesn't have to take a long time. See, a lot of people think that meditation or a lot of the self-care work, sitting in a bathtub, well, gosh, as a busy parent, I don't have time to sit in a bathtub. I barely have time to empty the dishwasher. But I do have time for 3 breaths or 5 breaths through the chest area. And what that does is it signals up to the brain that everything's okay. Because that breath is the most efficient way of voluntarily controlling our nervous system. See, when we're stressed, we breathe quickly, right? Really sharp, short, shallow breaths, rapid. We might even hold our breath.
Yeah.
But when we take a deep breath, right? If you just try that, immediately that's sending messages up to the brain.
Yeah.
Through a very important nerve called the vagus nerve. And it's telling that emotional brain, we're okay. We're okay. And that's then when our cortex can come back online, and then we can have a conversation with our child. So the HeartMath techniques are helping us learn, okay, my lid's flipped. That's number 1, becoming aware. I'm not in my, in this place where I want to be right now. I'm going to say something or do something that I'm going to regret. That's number 1, become aware. And number 2 is I've got a choice here. I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to slow down and I'm going to make a choice to take a few deep breaths. Then my cortex comes back online. And now I can respond more effectively to my child. Now I'm not going to feel guilty because I said something I shouldn't have said, or I did something that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And that's when our child is also going to respond to us differently. And I've seen that over and over. I have 2 kids. And when I respond to them in a more regulated fashion, then they're going to respond to me in a more regulated fashion. And Bruce Perry talks about regulate, relate, reason. And that's the same sort of order. The first thing you want to do when you have a conversation with someone, especially if you're upset, is regulate.
Yep.
And that's all through the breath.
So
then relate. What's going on? And then reason.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, because I think some of the people in our audience might not be familiar that much with HeartMath. We've done some stories where you can use the device and heart-centered breathing, and there's, decades, like I said, of research of this. But if you're a parent out there who's feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, and you're acknowledging that sometimes you're reacting in ways you don't want, what's the first step with HeartMath to use this program to really change at a scientific level what's going on in our nervous system?
Yeah, so the first thing that we talk about in the HeartMath for Parents program is recognizing our triggers, right? Because we all know that there are certain times throughout the day. It might be morning time trying to get the kids out the door. It might be bedtime. It might be homework time. What are the times in the day where, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get triggered, right? And
all those times you just mentioned, yeah. Right. I have two teens, and yeah, depending on the day. But yeah, homework is tough, or I have one child who no matter what is late every day, and I think that triggers everyone, because then the older child worries they're going to be late, and so some of it's behavior modification. But I think that's so important. Let's just talk about a trigger from a perspective of, if we notice our triggers are often things are coming up that might be from a very long time ago, and we don't have much control over how we're feeling, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, and often there's a stack there, it's like it's happened over and over and over and over again. And so that's one of the triggers, is that I may not be responding to that one instance, but I'm responding to every single other time. See, stress accumulates and these things accumulate. And so I'm going to have a disproportionate response. Why did you get so upset? I didn't do, it wasn't that bad. But it's like, oh no, but it's all the other times it's happened.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I've experienced that as a parent before, and your kid's looking at you like, why did she just flip her lid? And like, it was the straw that broke the camel's back on that way. The one thing I want to say is, parenting is hard, and we have lots of professionals like you who come on and say, like, don't feel bad. If you're listening to this, you're a good parent. You're trying to figure out how to do it. And we're all stuck with whatever our nervous systems are. So you can use HeartMath. And how does HeartMath actually change us so we can change the dynamics?
So the most important thing about HeartMath, I think, one of the most important things, is that it's recognizing the familiar pattern and changing it. So the familiar pattern is, I get upset, I yell, and I'm doing my best, but I'd like to be different. I'd like to maybe not yell, or I'd like to maybe not, flip my lid. And when we have a repetitive pattern, that is nerves that fire together, wire together. And so we have these neural pathways that have been created with habits and with reactions and responses. And what's happening is that we're familiar with it, and those nerves, our whole behavior is familiar with it. And so, yes, I can go and take a hot bath at the end of the day, and that might fill my bucket, but it's not going to help that neural pathway in the moment.
Right. So what does HeartMath do?
So what HeartMath is doing is it's recognizing, okay, this is my familiar pathway. And in order for me to change my nervous system, I have to take a different path. I have to choose something different in the moment. So HeartMath does two things. Number one is it gives you a moment of pause. As soon as you move your attention from outside to the heart area to inside, that gives us a moment of pause. And then we can take some breaths, 5 breaths, 3 breaths. Sometimes, it's a minute, sometimes it's 3 minutes, but it doesn't have to be long, and that's critical. That slows down the nervous system. And it brings us away from that flipped lid mode to something that's a little bit more rational, reasonable. And that's changing our neural pathway. That's changing this familiar pathway to something different. And the more times we can do that, the easier it becomes. And we're shifting our neurology as well. That sympathetic, fight or flight response is not going to be as activated. And so we're able to bring our more rest and repair system online, which is very, very important for health, digestion, being able to fall asleep at the end of the night. So that's the third thing. We actually, it affects our health when we are able to be in that state of just taking a moment, taking 3 breaths, responding in a different way, changing that neural pathway, and the neurology that's following suit.
Yes. So this, I want to explain to people how this works. At this point, you're probably going, well, this sounds great, but what is it? It's actually something you can do from your own home. You lead it as a pediatric neurologist, so different than maybe some of the apps that are out there. I know people are trying meditation apps. This is specifically scientifically grounded with you as a neurologist, watching this online video content, and there's like 15 sessions. I want to get micro with you about it. I know they're called micro learning sessions, but parents are going to go, oh my gosh, I don't have time to go to school. This isn't that, right? I mean, it's just manageable, and are we going to start noticing differences soon?
Absolutely. I mean, right in the first, after you sort of learn a little bit about HeartMath and the concept behind HeartMath, because how we show up will affect everything around us, everything, not just our children, but our partners, our work, our colleagues, our friends. So being able to take care of us changes everything. And so learning a little bit about that and how our heart rhythm patterns are actually communicated to other people. And then we start right away talking about what are some triggers? What are some things that, activate you?
Yeah.
And then what are the things that fill your bucket? What are the things that replenish your energy stores? Because all of this is draining our energy. And so it's no wonder that at the end of the day, we're exhausted, right? We can barely keep our eyes open. It's 9 o'clock and, we're falling asleep with our, in our kid's bed.
Right.
So
or we're not sleeping because we're so overstressed.
Or we're not sleeping. That's right. So these things, again, they accumulate and they start to affect our health. Yeah. And so right away in this course, we start talking about triggers, about, the replenishing activities and the depleting activities in your day. And then we start talking, we go over we have 4 main HeartMath techniques. So the first one is regulates the nervous system. The second is bringing in a replenishing emotion. So something like gratitude or compassion or appreciation or care. And we talk about these emotions in a way of let's have gratitude. And, we know that gratitude is good for us, but the reason it's good for us is because it changes our physiology.
Yes, there's a lot of science, right?
Research.
I mean, you're a neurologist. There's a lot of science. It's not just about, I just interviewed Dr. Daniel Amen the other day, America's psychiatrist, they call him. He talks about one thing to change your brain is every day wake up and make the decision, I'm going to have a good day, and then go on a treasure trove looking for things to be grateful for. And he says that not to be woo-woo, but we actually are changing our neurology when we do that. We're changing our patterns because our brain is sort of programmed primitively to look for the bad things to keep us safe, right?
Yeah, well, especially when bad things have happened. Right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We've all had probably some trauma, some more than others, but most of us have had trauma in our life. And so triggers can activate balloons, I'll call them, of trauma in you, where you kind of it all comes up. They say if it's hysterical, it's historical. So if you're losing it, it might be because of something that happened to you 20 years ago, but it doesn't matter, you lost it and you feel guilty with your kids.
That's right. Yeah, trauma is one of those things that's invisible, and we don't talk about it very often. And that's one of the things that we do talk about in the HeartMath for Parents course. Okay. Is that we have stories and we have internal tapes and dialogues and things telling us that we're not good enough, or, experiences that have, given us affect our self-confidence and in how we parent, attachment, the ability to respond to our child in the moment. And so all of these things affect how we show up. And so that's part of this course, is understanding that things are coming up for you. How can we take that pause? Oh, something's coming up for me. Okay, maybe need to address that, or maybe I need to talk to somebody about this, because this is becoming aware, and awareness precedes change. We can't change anything if we're not aware of it. And so we talk a lot about, these kinds of things in the course, and we're giving you tools in the process. So self-regulation tools to communicate more effectively with your child, tools to communicate more effectively with your partner. And then the last part is decision making. And I think parents have millions of decisions to make every day. And when we're stressed and our lid is flipped, that's not the best place to be making decisions from.
Yeah.
And so one of the techniques that we learn is regulate ourselves, bring our whole system into a replenishing state where we can look at things more objectively and make decisions from that place. And that takes about 2 minutes.
Okay, that was my big question. I think sometimes, because I know I have had the blessing of working on myself and interviewing people like you of, okay, the importance of pause. And I still know that sometimes I don't pause. And there's a part of it that will say, you just want to do this, or whatever. And that's, I think, important to know, like, how long does it take? Parents are always concerned about time, and that's part of it, right? In the morning, you might be like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time, and it keeps going. But how long does it really take for us to come back to ourselves if we use some of these strategies you're teaching?
Right away. I mean, the more you use it, the easier it becomes. And so what we talk about is like, just practice when you're at a stoplight and you're late. Oh, okay, here's a trigger. There's nothing you can do. You're sitting at a stoplight anyways, or in line at the grocery store, right? You need to be somewhere. There's somebody in front of you that has a big cart and you got to stand there. Take this opportunity to practice and give your system that dose of this is what it feels like. And it doesn't have to take long. That's the beauty of these HeartMath techniques, is they're so fast. And I don't have to take myself out of a situation in order to practice it. I can be right there. I can be having a conversation with my child.
Okay.
And I can say, okay, honey, you know what? I just need to take a minute. And I just need a break from this conversation. I'm going to take a time out. And you can be right there. You can do the breathing as you're talking to them, or you can model the self-regulation. Say, I'm getting triggered.
Okay.
Let me take a minute.
Yeah.
To center myself and take a breath.
And that's everything, because then we're teaching it by role model. That was my next question is, let's say we do this. Do we need to do it with both parents, or it's okay with just one parent to do these lessons? And do you take it with the kids too, or the kids just learn because you start regulating yourself?
All of the above.
Okay.
I think it's really great when you can have language in your house where you can talk about these things. Hey, let's regulate, or hey, I'm getting triggered, right? When everyone knows what that means, then everyone's working from the same playbook. And that's really helpful. But it doesn't have to be that way. If your kids don't want to have anything to do with this, or your partner doesn't want to have anything to do with this, that's just fine, because ultimately it has to start with you.
Okay.
And you'll notice that when you start to be more regulated, things around you start to, it has impact. We know it has impact energetically, physiologically, it all has impact. So starting with ourselves, that's number one. And then you'll see how the rest, unfolds.
And as a neurologist, can you explain for the layman, like the way we're reacting? It's not so much that just our kids are mirroring us, but if they're having a moment and that triggers us, which is kind of a problem because, kids having intense emotions sometimes triggers the parents, and then we start having intense emotions. But there's actually something physiological, right, that happens that the emotions get matched. Like if we have to not match their energy or we're really raising it.
That's right. So there's a process called co-regulation, and it's using exactly what you're talking about. So when somebody comes at me and I start to get triggered, my lid is flipped, right? Then their lid is flipped and we just go at it, right? And that's going to happen even when you use HeartMath. I mean, I've been using HeartMath and my family uses HeartMath. We've been doing it for almost 10 years. We still sometimes flip our lids, and that's okay, right? We are all human. But if I can take that time to bring my lid down and my kid is still upset, I can start to help to regulate them.
What do you do?
And then they can bring theirs down. And that's a totally different conversation when both of us are regulated and both of our cortexes are working full cylinders.
And the other thing we need to say, and I love, Dr. Daniel Siegel's fist, because I've tried to explain that to my kids who are 13 and 16. I'd say the 13-year-old boy doesn't want to hear anything about this and probably needs to hear stuff about this. But so I love what he says. But he also says, I just want to give hope to parents out there that when we heal ourselves, we really are helping heal our kids. And they have a long time to go before their prefrontal cortex is even online, right? I mean, their brain's going to keep developing till about 25 in girls and maybe as late as 27 in boys. So me, as a 47-year-old woman, once I learn this, I can help the child a lot more. Like we probably can't expect them to not flip their lid more than we do, or that we would expect them to flip their lid more than we do because they actually have an immature brain.
That's correct. That's right. And so it's really important as the parent to, number one, become aware of these things ourselves, be able to practice them, be able to model them. And yeah, our children, they are, and I would say, with your son, it may not be, you might be telling him this and he may not be getting it in the moment, but he's getting it.
Yeah.
And so the more you can just bring these things in casual conversation. Oh, I flipped my lid. The other thing is apologizing. I really didn't show up there the way I wanted to, and I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And that does wonders. And your kid's like, whoa.
Yeah, no, and that's great.
And then you're modeling that it's okay to make mistakes and that we can still repair. And that repair process is a really, really important part of building trust in that relationship. And then they know they can come to you for things when they've messed up because they can say sorry.
Doctor, we're out of time for this. But I want to really encourage people. I love HeartMath, and the programs are really user-friendly. So we want to encourage everyone to go to heartmath.com, and can they just click right there to find the parent training program? Is it easy to sign up?
Yeah, so it might be under the trainings tab. And you can always check in with, there should be plenty of opportunity. You can see where the different trainings are to find it.
So look for the parent training module is what we're looking for.
Yeah, HeartMath for parents.
HeartMath for parents. I'm going to post it on social media. I'll make sure you guys can get the links. It's really great. I don't know if you use it with this program, but there's a little device that comes and you can put your finger on it. It actually shows if you're in. Did you use that with the parent training program too? Okay.
We didn't talk, so we talk a lot about it a little bit, but it's not necessary to have, now you can buy an HRV device that measures your heart rhythm and shows if you're regulated.
But you don't have to.
And that's something separate, but you don't have to have that for this parenting course.
All right, and I know we're out of time, so I'll leave it there, but I encourage you to go to heartmath.com, lots of information there. Doctor, thank you so much for sharing your time with us, and all the parents out there, keep the faith. It's a progress. We're all learning. Thanks.
It is. We're all learning. We're all in it together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for being here. You can follow me at Cara Sundlin on social media for more information on the cutting edge of wellness. Have a great day and be well.